everything in Christ with love and truth. Good afternoon. With the main news, I'm Justina, Matandiko, Mukuka. Kindly be informed that we are also streaming live on the Radio Changalo Facebook page. The headlines: Councils challenged to consult stakeholders when planning construction land for energy facilities. Men and women encouraged to go for breast cancer screening, and Europe's biggest economies reinstating some form of national lockdown as the continent confronts a surge in COVID-19 cases and deaths. And now the main news in detail. The increase in the number of cases related to encroachment on electricity wayleaves and allocation of land for construction of service stations and fuel storage depots in unsuitable areas has worried the Energy Regulation Board (ERB). This has prompted ERB to hold a meeting with selected local authorities and other key stakeholders to discuss matters related to the location of the energy infrastructure. Speaking when he graced the meeting, Copperbelt Permanent Secretary Bright Lundwe cautioned local authorities in the province to always consult key stakeholders such as ERB and ZEMA when planning for land meant for the construction of energy facilities. Mr. Nundwe further emphasized on the importance of energy in the economic growth of the country.
We can't flourish as a country. Everything becomes expensive. Country, we are number one. The increase in land demand for infrastructure has, in certain circumstances, led to the allocation of the land in unsuitable areas for the construction of energy facility. Allocation of land without due demand for long-term planning must end today. Very important. At least in this province, such advice should stop. I therefore wish to call upon all the councils on the continent to enhance and engage all key stakeholders before allocating land for development. This is very critical. These include the Energy Regulation Board, Zambia Environmental Management Agency, Water Resource Management Authority.
Earlier, ERB Senior Manager, Copperbelt Region, Nasima Sheikh, said most public infrastructure is being built close to energy facilities due to the high demand for land, a situation she described as a grave safety concern.
Is in infrastructure development in our country, which has resulted in competing land use for the construction of homesteads, industries, roads, rail, and other infrastructure. One of the notable outcomes of the growing land demand is a close proximity and encroachment of homesteads and public places to energy infrastructure, which is a grave safety concern if not managed. As a regulator, we are guided by the Energy Regulation Act, number 12, and Electricity Act, number 11 of 2019, that was assented to this year, as well as other pieces of legislation when approving the location of energy infrastructure in our country.
Men and women are being encouraged to take an interest in screening for breast cancer. Dr. Enoch Soko, a surgeon at Kitwe Teaching Hospital, said early detection of cancer screening saves lives and prevents the disease from spreading to other parts of the body. Speaking when he featured on Radio Changalo's Health Talk program today, Dr. Soko emphasized that people must take breast cancer screening seriously.
Information is the key for early detection and treatment. You know, if you detect breast cancer early, treatment is easier and the outcome is good. So in order for us to avoid bad outcomes, let's ensure that we examine our breasts at least once a month. And if we see that there is anything sinister about the breast, we quickly rush to the hospital so that we are assessed.
A two-day workshop aimed at strengthening social justice in the mining industry with multinational companies is underway at Hotel Edinburgh in Kitwe. The workshop, which starts today, has been organized by Mine Workers Union of Zambia (MUS) in partnership with Friedrich Ebert Stiftung (FES). And speaking when he graced the occasion, MUS General Secretary George Mumba said the desire of the union is to see improved benefits for miners and communities under which operations are being done. Mr. Mumba, however, bemoaned the multiplicity of unions, which he said has posed a challenge in consolidating a collective voice for the miners. He said it is worrying to note that some mine unions are being formed at a time when there is depletion of workers due to technological advancements, such as most works becoming automated.
Visions that are being created by the formation of more unions in the mining industry, weakening the voice of the worker and the advantage of the employer. So it's up to us, the leadership, to realize that the increased number of unions giving us a service on service, we have to reflect and see how best do we fight this fight. What is even more worrying is that these unions are being formed amid the depleting of membership in the industry due to mechanization, automation, and even massive retrenchment being applied by these multinational companies as a cost-saving measure while maximizing their profit-generating activity. We are however wish to want all those who are spearheading or sponsoring information of printer unions that austerity will damage the machine.
At the same event, FES resident representative Peter Kapiska emphasized the need to improve working conditions for the people at the forefront of production.
Negotiating power with everybody now. But it's not just other unions, it's not just other workers. I think by now the world is quite full of examples that the consumer also plays a very important role. I mean, it's very hard to identify the consumer of copper, but there are very powerful examples from other areas. Coffee, diamonds, textiles, and all of these areas, there is a big discussion going on. There's a lot of pressure on the international companies, the multinationals, to improve the working conditions of the very people that produce whatever they are selling. The supply chains are really being analyzed these days.
The National Action for Quality Education in Zambia (NAQES) has appealed to President Edgar Lungu to come to the aid of schools over the need for a special electricity tariff. NAQES Executive Director Aaron Chansa explained that his organization wants President Lungu to intervene in the matter, as engagements with the Minister of Energy and the Energy Regulation Board have not yielded any positive result. In a statement, Mr. Chansa pointed out that under the current circumstances, the social tariff is not sustainable for schools and is clearly an affront to the provision of education in schools. Mr. Chansa added that it is social and economic injustice to expect very poor primary schools to be spending more than 3,000 kwacha per month on electricity and more than 25,000 kwacha per month for boarding schools. He said NAQES foresees a situation where many schools may be failing to purchase power, especially during the season of national examinations. During a visit to Sri Lanka on Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visited St. Anthony's Shrine, Kajakade, one of the sites of the 2019 Easter bombings. According to the Catholic News Agency website, Pompeo laid a wreath at the shrine in Colombo, October 28. Speaking to the press earlier on the day, he said that it was important to take a moment and visit the shrine of St. Anthony, one of the 5 sites that was attacked by ISIS on Easter Sunday of 2019. Dola District has received over 8,000 metric tons of Farmer Input Support Program for the 2020-2021 farming season. Dola District Commissioner Anthony Katonga revealed that urea, D-compound, maize, sorghum, and soybean seeds have been delivered in readiness for the forthcoming farming season. Meanwhile, Mr. Katongo has urged farmers to continue selling maize to the Food Reserve Agency (FRA), saying the agency was still buying maize for food security in the country.
Received about 8,609 packs, which will comprise of urea of 1,366.35 metric tons, and we have also received D-compound of about 1,432.9 metric tons. We have also received maize. This is the seeds, which is about 36.9 metric tons, sorghum, which are 7.5 metric tons, soya beans, 66.65 metric tons, and groundnuts, 70 metric tons. And now all the cooperatives have been able to pay the money which they're supposed to contribute to this. Everything has been banked. There's a revenue of about 3.4 million kwacha, which has been banked. And the process of distribution of this has already started. Most of the farmers have received the inputs.
This news broadcast comes to you in the community service of Radio Ichengelo with compliments of Moose Milling and the Zambia Catholic University. And now the international news as monitored from the BBC. Two of Europe's biggest economies are reinstating some form of national lockdown as the continent confronts a surge in coronavirus cases and deaths. From Friday, people in France will only be allowed to leave home for essential work or medical reasons. President Emmanuel Macron said the country risks being overwhelmed by a second wave that no doubt will be harder than the first. Germany, meanwhile, is imposing a soft national lockdown. The measures coming into force on Monday are less severe than in France, but they include the closure of restaurants, bars, gyms, and theaters, Chancellor Angela Merkel said. Ethiopia's popular singer Tewodros Kasun, known by his stage name Teddy Afro, has urged the government to prevent inhumane acts of violence against civilians. Ethnic-related unrest continues to be a challenge for the government. Only last week, at least 31 civilians were killed by unknown militants in southern Ethiopia. In a Facebook post, Teddy strongly urged the government to take precautionary measures against such attacks. His music was the anthem of the anti-government protesters. And finally, Al-Qaeda is still heavily embedded within the Taliban in Afghanistan in spite of a historic US-Taliban agreement earlier this year, a senior United Nations official has told the BBC. Earlier this year, the US signed an agreement with the Taliban committing to withdrawing all American forces from the country by next summer if the Taliban ensured groups, including Al-Qaeda, were not able to use Afghan territory to plot international attacks. But Edmund Fitton Brown, coordinator of the UN's Islamic State, Al-Qaeda and Taliban monitoring team, has told the BBC that the Taliban promised Al-Qaeda in the run-up to the US agreement that the two groups would remain allies. Mr. Fitton Brown said the Taliban were talking regularly and at a high level with Al-Qaeda and reassuring them that they would honor their historic ties. And that item brings us to the end of our main news. We take a look at the headlines once again. Councils challenged to consult stakeholders when planning construction land for energy facilities. Men and women encouraged to go for breast cancer screening, and Europe's biggest economies reinstating some form of national lockdown as the continent confronts a surge in COVID-19 cases and deaths. Friends, for this and more stories, you can visit our Facebook page. Log on Facebook and like the Radio Ichengelo page and link to radioichengelo.radio12345.com. You can also listen to the rebroadcast of the news on our YouTube channel. You can also listen to us on Radio Garden. And now the weather update as compiled by the Zambian Meteorological Department. During the period 27th October to 2nd November 2020, much of the eastern half of Zambia, including northwestern province, will be under the influence of winds from the northwest direction, leading to a chance of isolated showers. The rest of the country will be affected by winds from the eastern direction, resulting in mainly sunny, windy, and hot weather conditions. And friends, remember to play your part in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic by adhering to the safety guidelines as outlined by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. Wear a mask when in public, avoid large groups and maintain social distance, avoid unnecessary movements, and always wash your hands frequently for at least 20 seconds. Remember to cover your cough or sneeze with a flexed elbow, handkerchief, or tissue. On behalf of the entire news team, my name is Justina Matandiko Mukuka. Have a wonderful afternoon.